Hey everybody, it's Christina Louise. Welcome to Parenting for a Peaceful Home. Today I am thrilled to introduce you to a new friend of mine, David Taylor Klaus. He's here to blow the roof off of work-life balance. He is an executive coach and an entrepreneur coach, and he's here to show you how to design your work, your career, and your business in a way that works for you, your partner, co-parent, and your children. Yes, you can have it all, so he says, and we're going to find out today. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
I'm excited to introduce you to all these parents here. So what is it? What do you mean by entrepreneur coach, executive coach? What does that mean exactly?
Great. No, great question. Because for me, when I look at an entrepreneur and a senior executive, they're really similar in that, and you can bludgeon your way through corporate based on what you can do. You can only get so far. As an entrepreneur or a senior leader, your success is dependent upon who you are at your core. Right? And so that's where the real growth happens. That's where the work happens. So what I'm doing is using one-to-one coaching and team coaching to help folks that are starting and running businesses to make better decisions and get better results. And coaching is, for me, the strongest way to create shift.
You have a really interesting story about how you got into coaching. Do you want to share that with us today?
Yeah. So I spent the better part of 2 decades as an entrepreneur. And I went from one fickle industry, I was in hospitality, to technology because, of course, chaos seemed to be good for me. And the challenge I had was I realized that I had got so twisted up in the way I should be running a business or should be living a life and caught up with that need to be seen, how it looked from the outside, that I forgot to pay attention to how it felt and what it looked like from the inside. And I got so disconnected from what was important by getting caught up in what it should look like that I wanted out. I wanted out of my business. I wanted out of the community. I wanted out of my life. And that just, yeah, my wife talks about that Scarlett O'Hara moment, as God is my witness, no one should ever have to feel like that. And too many entrepreneurs get caught up in the way it should be and get lost. So I did it the hard way, and I came out of it and realized that as I looked around at the other entrepreneurs around me and other senior leaders, they were experiencing something very similar. And whether it was, I thought I'd be farther along by now, or my spouse hates my job more than I do, I was starting to hear a lot of themes. And so instead of working with them on their websites and web initiatives that I did for 14 years, I realized I wanted to work with the same people, but I wanted to work with them on figuring out why they were here and what the shift was they wanted to create, because I wish I had had that. So I went to a coach training for a weekend, and it was incredible. It put language and structure to what I felt like was how I was wired. And that was 2008, and I haven't looked back. I've been coaching and training and coaching and training and coaching and training nonstop since then.
That's awesome.
When you figure out what it is, you have to pay attention.
What do you mean by that?
When you figure out what it is that makes your heart sing, or that work that you love to do so much that you do it for free and you get paid well for it, you got to pay attention. When the universe says, this is it, you got to jump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, my story and your story resonates, and a lot of very successful entrepreneurs that I meet, they kind of unfolded into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there's parents watching today that are feeling like they hate their business, they hate their company, they hate their career, or their spouse or co-parent is upset about the way things are going, and they feel like the business is a detriment. Yeah, it might be bringing in money, but nobody's happy at home.
At what cost? Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, how do we figure out this work-life balance?
That term makes my skin crawl.
Tell me why.
I'll be good, I swear.
It doesn't have to be.
That whole idea of work-life balance. Okay, so it's a story that I tell in one of my books, that I set Google to give me the first 100 results, and I typed in life work balance in quotes. So Google is supposed to give you back results just like you type in, right? 75 of the first 100 came back as work-life balance. Even the Google algorithm has it backwards. When did it become okay to put work first? That's the problem. That's what's got us all screwed up. That we're putting work first, even in the equation of talking about getting things balanced. Well, in order to balance things, think of a seesaw. In order to balance things, you have to separate them to balance them. Well, for entrepreneurs and senior leaders, good luck. It's really hard to separate work and life. You're not putting widgets onto a chassis on a Toyota line from 9 to 5 and then leaving work at work. It doesn't work that way. So it's much more about life work integration, or there's a coach named Evelyn who talks about this. It's life work rhythm. Getting into a rhythm where things fit in service of what you're trying to create for yourself and for your family. So this idea of balancing work and life, putting work first, is insane. That's what led us to the entrepreneurs banging away for 80 hours a week and wearing that like a badge of honor while their partner or co-parent is at home saying, what the? So that's not working. Mm-hmm. And so that's where you end up with folks that are each new level of professional success is coming at the expense of either personal success or personal fulfillment. And that's a terrible slide.
I agree. I've experienced that myself.
Oh, me too.
I have a twofold question. So so let's just back up. This is really, really, really good. I want to ask, but what about money? Mm-hmm. That in a second. And secondly, I just want to highlight what I think I heard you say so far, just to make sure we're all keeping up here. So it's not work first, life second balance, even though that's what Google says. David, it's life work rhythm. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
I look at it as life work integration. Great presentation by this guy named Evelyn again, who talked about life work rhythm. So I like the language that he uses, and it was so in sync with what I talk about, which is you really do design. Here's how it works. You design the life that you want. Create a clear and resonant picture of what it is you want your life to look like. Then you create your business or re-architect your business to support that life. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, you can have this, you never quite get to living the life that you want if everything is coming through the filter of, here's work, how do I jam my life into the gaps around it? That doesn't work.
You're right. I know it doesn't work.
I know. And in working harder and hammering at it more and more and more, it didn't work for me, and I don't know anybody it works for.
Right. Because then you start saying well, when I hit that next milestone, or when I get that next client, or when I make that next 100 grand, then I'll relax, then I'll take a vacation, then I'll pay attention, and it never happens.
No, it's my client who opened up the US division of a UK company and built it up and built it up and built it up and finally got that professional management layer in place, and he had hired himself out of a job. And he was really at a place where he could turn his attention back to his family. And his wife said, I'm taking the kids, and left. He missed it. And he missed the clues along the way, because it was always, when I get there, I can, or when I get there, I will. There's no there.
Yeah.
And that story happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And our kids can't connect, and they get into trouble, and they act out, and then they treat themselves and other people that way. And that's not how we're going to raise kids who thrive in the world. And I know that for the parents watching this is not how they want to live their life anymore.
No.
What can we do? And what could we say if we're, a parent who's co-parenting, or maybe he or she is not in the business per se, but they're watching right now because their partner is doing this and they're on the verge of leaving? What would you say to a parent who's suffering because of their parents, their partners trying to make work-life balance? And
yeah, and it's like, And not in the Southern way. I just want to say, bless their heart, both of them, because that's a sucky place to be. Because the one who's wrapped up around the axle of the business is, I just got to make enough to get us to a place where we're settled or safe, or there's got to be enough. And that, you never get there. So part of it is, and this goes back to, you said you wanted to touch on money.
Yeah.
Here's the cool thing. If we look at it as currency instead of money, money is only one currency. Unfortunately, it's the one that we always look at, right? Yes, and. So there are other currencies: connection, free time, travel, grace, latitude. There are lots of different ways to look at it. But if all you're focused on is the money, then the time that you could be spending with your family while they're growing, you lose that time. Most often. Now, obviously, nothing's cut and dried. And wow, when you can decide who you want to be as a parent, as a spouse, as a member of the community, and look at what it takes to spend that time and invest that time to get that currency, that satisfaction, that connection, then you've got to make work fit in around that. It's, you decide what the life is and you fit work around it. Mm-hmm. And look, coaching provides me a lot more flexibility than somebody whose job is, they could be an accountant, an attorney, they could be working on the factory floor at Toyota. Those have times those are time bound. However, how you treat that time and how you navigate the time outside is what's important. Nobody is on this planet to make money, period. That's not why we're here. This grand experiment is not so we can go out and make little pieces of paper. Whether you believe we're here to leave the world a better place than we found it, or create a shift, or what you believe your impact is meant to be, it's not to make a bigger pile of money. Right. So focus on what it is that you have the opportunity to do and be for your family, for your community, for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's where your energy goes. Mm-hmm. While you're not doing that, you're out making money so that you can do more of that.
Right. And I know people who live life and design their businesses the way that you're prescribing. And I know people who don't. And I tell you what, it's the people who do it the way that you're doing it that actually do make more money, that they're not stressed about money. They're making more money. They're not stressed about money. And they just have that quality of life that we all know we want and we deserve.
That's who people want to be around, right? And it's amazing. It's the idea that energy attracts. So if you're in a place where you are doing something you enjoy, or doing something that works for you so you can do the other things that you enjoy, that's a very different place to be. That's more of the sufficiency energy, not scarcity. Lynn Twist in The Soul of Money talks a lot about the lie of scarcity and, frankly, the lie of abundance. They're both built off a zero-sum game. Sufficiency is really the place where you have a lot more latitude, a lot more grace, a lot more positive energy, knowing that there is enough to go around. You can't plan for every eventuality, right? You don't know when, God forbid we have another crash like we did in 1929. You can't plan for something like that, because people woke up and on October 30th, they had zero. It didn't matter how many zeros they had in the bank on the 29th. On the 30th, they had zero. So one way to look at it is real financial freedom comes from knowing that if you lost it all, you could make it again. You would survive. You have the hard part, the family, the relationship with your kids, whatever it may be. So it's not the number of zeros you have in the bank, because tomorrow it could be zero. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to define success? That's kind of the beginning, right? What is success for you? If it's just a number of zeros in the bank, God bless you, have fun. But that's not what we're wired for. That's the myth that we're told that if we have enough money, we'll be stable, we'll be safe, everything will be okay.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't really work that way.
Research shows that it's not.
It's not.
We came across a study that said if you take somebody from 0 to 50K, they will get happier, but anything over and above what's needed or necessary to keep a roof and clothing and food in your belly doesn't make you any more happier.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, if it goes high, the higher it goes, it actually can have the reverse effect.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the life side of that life work integration or that life work balance game played out, then it doesn't matter how big the bank account is. It's not going to change that this sucks. If you get this right, gives a lot more latitude here. Money does not make this better.
Mm-hmm. True. So what does make, how do we create a healthy life work rhythm? I'm still getting caught up in saying work-life balance because
it's a habit, right?
Yeah.
You've heard it for a good while.
I've heard it forever. Life work rhythm. I like that. What would be just a few tips you could give to the parents watching if they're really like into this and like, okay, this makes sense. How do I start?
So let's go straight to the heart for a moment, because if you can look at your child and imagine them. So I have a 16-year-old. If I look at him and I imagine him, he's now my age, 52, and he's got a 16-year-old. What's the lesson that I want him to have learned from me about parenting and being part of a family that he wants to teach his 16-year-old? Is it about going out and making sure that you're the father knows best provider and damn it, you'll never be home, but you're going to make all the money you can? Is that what I want him to be teaching and modeling for his kid? Hell no. It's about authentic connection. And what does that take? What's important? So it's starting out, what do you want to model for your kid? Who do you want to see them be when they're parents? Who do you want them to be when they're out in the work world? So the way you model it is important. They're watching you. Right? Jamie Lee Curtis calls children the paparazzi, right? They see everything, they hear everything, and they repeat it at the worst possible time. So don't think they're not watching you. So the way you parent them is the way they're going to parent their kids. What do you want them to see? So that's one piece. That's an awareness to hold when they see how you are in relationship with a partner and they see how you are in relationship with them. They're learning. The other piece is start with a clear picture in mind of what you want your life to look like, to feel like, to be like. And whether you pick 6 months, 6 years, or 6 decades in the future, paint that clear, resonant picture of what your world looks like. Who's in it, who's not in it, what's around you, what are you doing, where are you living, what is the ideal that you want? And don't get stuck into how do I get there, how do I get there, how do I get there. First, create the picture. So with that clear, resonant picture of what you want your world to look like, then you draw the picture a little wider. So what would I have to be making, earning, taking out of my company or my business or my job in order to afford that life? Right? And what's different about what would that company need to be doing or selling, or how would it need to be functioning in order for me to pull out that kind of money to live that kind of life? So what's the difference between that company now and that company then? And then you start creating the step-by-step plan to change the business or change the path of your career. We're sort of doing broad generalization, but the idea is you plan backwards. You start with that picture and you work backwards. Because if we start here and try to figure out which way we're going to go, first of all, we have 360 degrees to go. Then we limit it by, okay, how do I take the next step? What's the first step? And that how gets you stuck. That's why you start with that clear, resonant picture and work the plan backwards. And we do this with companies when we do strategic planning. It's starting with that resonant picture in mind first. Whether you're planning your own life or you're planning a vacation, what do we want the vacation? How do we want to be telling stories about this vacation when we get home? Great. What does that mean we would have to have done? You work backwards.
Right.
Stephen Covey talks about starting with the end in mind. He was brilliant. Start with a clear picture of the end in mind and work backwards.
Right.
Did sort of a long way around. Did that help answer the question?
Yeah, perfectly. Okay, I mean, it makes sense to me because I have had coaches in my life for years who have talked to me about this. If this is the first time you're hearing it, I still feel like it would make really good sense. I think it's just me vouching for, like, listen, he's not the only guy out here talking about this. This is the way that I live. I attempt to practice to live in my life, and the way that a lot of other successful people are doing it and living that work-life rhythm. So just be open to that, and try it out. So we would start with thinking from the end. What do we want our life to look like? You know, how much time do we want to spend with our family? How much free time to, like, really just, and I really like what you said about not getting stuck in what's possible or how it's all going to work out, but really just giving yourself permission to take the gloves off, take your mind out of it, and just, if you could wave a magic fairy wand, what would your life look like? Would you retire your parents? Would you homeschool your kids? Would you be living in Europe? Like, really give yourself permission for at least a few minutes to tune into what your heart and your soul are calling out for. Because the universe has a funny way of bringing it to you once you acknowledge it and it's a little bit open to it. I know that for sure. So what would you say to somebody who's really vibing with what you're saying, but it's not for them, it's for their partner that they're really angry with? Like, I know you said you would give them compassion, but I think the next step would be to take advantage of your free gift, don't you?
Well, I think that's brilliant for everybody.
Yeah.
No, and I think that, yes, the free gift, and we can play with that in a minute. I think the other piece is have the conversation. You know, the idea of saying, give them acknowledgement for the work that they're doing and how hard it is and how hard it must be to feel like they're missing something or missing out on something. You have to acknowledge the reality of where the other person is, and don't make assumptions. Ask. Have the conversation. So much gets caught up. Parenting is all consuming, right? I mean, life is in general, parenting in specific. And a lot of families go into autopilot just trying to navigate the busy and the volume and the craziness that everybody seems to be swirling through. So the difference is, what if you added just being conscious? Have the conversation. What's it feeling like? How's it going? Yeah. You know, simple open-ended questions. You know, you used to talk before you had kids, and then you had kids and nobody has time. So go back to the talking, get curious. And when you know where the other person's coming from, you can have a conversation about, damn, it's got to be hard. I get it. And show appreciation and have a conversation about what would you want to see different. And that's a hard one because the first thing is, I'd like to see lots of stuff different, but I have to go to work every damn day. Right. Out of the triggered state, have the conversation. What can we do different? What's important? What's not important? What are we making important that isn't really? So having those conversations changes the connection and changes the conversation you're able to have, particularly when it gets to about parenting. So yes, I think the book's a brilliant start, and have the conversations.
Yeah. Not in the triggered state.
There is, my wife has been telling me for 15 years that nothing good can come from the triggered state. You got to wait for it to dissipate a little bit. Because if you try to have a meaningful conversation in a trigger state, somebody's going to blow up. Mm-hmm. Traditionally, that's been me.
And let's just be clear on what we mean when we say the triggered state.
So little bit of brain science. Once the adrenaline hits, once the cortisol hits, once your pulse is up, your shoulders are up by your ears, once you're triggered, whether you've taken something personally, whether somebody hasn't followed a direction and it's making you nuts, when you're in that triggered state, you're in your primitive brain now. Your neocortex, your prefrontal cortex, totally disengaged. You're in reptilian brain. You either want to fight, fight, flight, freeze, or feed. There's nothing that the primitive brain can do to help you in a meaningful conversation. It has no language. So once you're in a triggered state, best thing you can do is step out of it. Add oxygen, breathe, and step out of it.
Thank you. All right, now let's talk about your book.
Awesome. All right, so I wrote sort of the story of that pivot point for me, which was figuring out, I had my wake-up call about 12 years ago and totally reoriented my world because I didn't like where I was. I didn't like what was going on. And so what we've been talking about is exactly that. This is your wake-up call. It's about designing the life that you want and then building your business to support it. And so I've got it available on my website for folks to be able to download. It's a quick read. Even in between running one kid this way and one kid that way, there's time to read it. And I think the reason I've written it is so that folks have a chance to say, okay, I am allowed to think about what's important to me. Because frankly, when you start creating the picture of the world that you want and start building your life in a way, your work around supporting that life, it changes the parent you're able to be. It changes the partner you're able to be. When you're more fulfilled, when you're clearer about what you want, you're a better partner and you can be a better parent.
Awesome. So when you click the link below this video, you will receive a free, it's the digital version of the whole
Exactly.
book.
Exactly. Yep. Whole book, not an excerpt. You just fill out click on the link here, fill out your name and your email, click the button, and you will get the book delivered to you.
That's pretty nifty. Well, thank you so much.
Awesome. It's great playing with you.
Reminded me of some things that might have slipped away as I've been producing this event for everybody. So good reminder for me. Thank you. And thank you to all the parents who showed up and made this time for yourself. Click the link so you can start designing the life that you want and the business to support it. And David, would you like to say anything else before we part ways for now?
No, I love that you've put this together, because I think any opportunity for parents to take a break and learn something about parenting and learn something about themselves will make a huge difference in their ability to parent. Put a little bit of time, energy, and money into supporting yourself so you can be a better partner and a better parent. So great program. Glad you're doing this.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me be part of it.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Much love and gratitude for all of us, to all of us. And I will see you all again with another awesome interview tomorrow. Bye.
Bye-bye.